Hello, all you lovely language and terrific technology people, and welcome to Voices from Language Learning and Technology, our very own in-house podcast. My name is Hayo Reinders, and today I have two wonderful guests, Lara Lomicka and Liudmila Klimanova. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hayo.
Liudmila, of course, are on the show now because very soon now, any day, we're going to have the latest special issue drop of language learning and technology that both of you are editing. Maybe Lara, I'll start with you. What is the topic and what can we expect?
Okay, well, the special issue is coming out about semiotics, so signs, meanings, multimodality in digital spaces, digital places, and how that relates to language learning and teaching. So we're really excited about this because I think that something like this hasn't been done before or published anywhere. So we were really grateful for language learning and technology to give us the opportunity to kind of bring some new ideas together from the field that relate to some different things. And I guess I could maybe start by just talking a little bit about how we came up with this idea and how it kind of came to fruition. I would say about 3 or 4 years ago, I was at a conference with Liudmila. I was at one of her sessions, and she was presenting on mapping the borderlands, which is a project that she has been working on at the University of Arizona with some of her colleagues. And while I was listening to her project, I was thinking, wow, I'm doing something very similar with a different tool, but I can't get my tool to do what I want it to do. So I started talking with Liudmila. We had several discussions about how I might be able to use her tool and collaborate with her, even though my project wasn't quite the same. Her project was connecting students and who were living in these border regions and documenting their experiences through images that they were collecting, and then talking about the meaning behind these images while geolocating them on maps. And I was working in the context of study abroad, short-term study abroad, taking students to Paris, taking students to Morocco, and having them capture kind of what they were experiencing in these spaces, trying to make meaning of their images and locate these images, geolocate them on maps. But the tool that I was using, Sifter, wasn't allowing me to upload 360 images and 360 video, and Liudmila's tool could do just that. And so we kind of initially got together just through that conference presentation and started thinking about, what we could do to promote the topic of semiotics a little bit more in language learning and teaching. And so, we were thinking, well, why don't we propose a special issue where maybe we could see what's going on with researchers internationally and nationally to see what kind of great ideas we could hear from others and kind of pull them all together into to a special issue. So I think that makes it really exciting to have the special issue on semiotics coming out with language learning and technology and very, very soon.
Yeah, awesome. And I have had a little peek, a little preview of the contents of the special issue. And what struck me is that it's a very, very wide range of topics. You think of semiotics, that's quite specific. It's not my field. And I assumed that, it was all going to be kind of quite contained, but actually the range of topics is amazing. So maybe, Liudmila, can you tell us a little bit about the kinds of contributions that you received?
Absolutely. Yes. And I think that you were not the only one surprised, because I think Lara and I, we both found the issue that were the articles that were submitted for the special issue. They had so many interesting new innovative pedagogies and new innovative theoretical approaches to teaching in a multimodal context, that what we initially thought semiotics was about, and our initial idea was thinking about the visual side of learning, actually expanded a lot to include different types of material side of learning, the tools, how tools and the configuration of tools would determine different outcomes for language learning. How, even orientation, one of the articles in this special issue by Ron Darwin um, has a unique study, or presents a very unique study on, the orientation, how students perceive information online actually affect the way they learn, and the fact that, the way they perceive information. So this would be, again, the range of topics, the breadth and the both conceptual and theoretical and pedagogical practical applications are really astounding, because there's so much going on right now with our technology that we sometimes overlook this part of learning. And I think with this special issue, we want to bring these considerations into focus again, and kind of have people consider, scholars and co-specialists consider the visual side of learning, studying from the tools to what students perceive and view and see, and also how we can enrich learners' experiences by playing with tools and diversifying visuals in digital devices and in digital platforms to engage them in more rich and transformative language learning. So in a nutshell, this is about the special issue. There are many, many different topics. And of course, we want to encourage LLT readers to take a peek, because every article is really unique, and it brings something new and something different to the study of semiotics, in digital semiotics and visual semiotics in general.
Yeah, and what really also struck me, in addition to the range of topics that you've mentioned, is the range of methodologies as well. And I was wondering, Lara, if you could say a little bit more about that, not just in terms of the methodologies used in these papers, but also how some of these tools can be used as research methodologies, perhaps even beyond the field of semiotics.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, really any of these articles, if you go in and kind of look at their approaches, their theoretical perspectives, the way that they've designed the studies, you can draw from each of those and kind of apply it to other things. There's ecological approaches to learning and semiotics. There's more quantitative type approaches. There's an article that has to do with learner memes, looking at the power behind the images that come out of the memes and the representations. And so just looking at the images themselves and trying to figure out what can they tell us about culture? What can they tell us about language? How do we make those connections? How do we link all that back to the community, to the locality? And I think initially, as Liudmila said, we were thinking this special issue would be something a little bit more related to just kind of the strictly images and geolocating those images and linguistic landscapes, and what it's become is this really nice mesh of like you said, different methodologies, different ways that we can approach semiotics that can be helpful, I think, to those looking to explore the use of semiotics and what that can bring to the field of language learning and technology in the future.
Yeah, and I've got two questions there, because you mentioned it right at the beginning, Lara, something that I wanted to follow up on, which was that there was nothing, like this. That there had not been any publication that brings together the technology side and semiotics in this way. So that kind of surprised me a little bit, because as an outsider to this specific field, it seems like such a natural fit. So maybe if one of you could say a little bit more about that. And then the follow-up question, where do you see the field going from here? What's next for this sort of combination of technology and semiotics?
Well, I can start with the first question. And so thinking in general, if we think about semiotics, the field has been around for a long time. And what surprises me is that we are in the coal field. We work with visuals. We work with representations of language. We work with representations of culture on the screen. And somehow we overlook this aspect of learning. To what extent, how we position objects on the screen, how we engage students in the creation of digital images, how does this all affect their learning? And in what type of learning they engage when they have this multimodal input that they receive, as opposed to linguistic input that has been around in our field for a while. But what does it mean to be engaged in multimodal input? And with that, I think bringing semiotics into the discussion of what we do in the field of computer-assisted language learning is a way to really complexify the digital communication, because that's the reality of life these days. We communicate on the go. We take our phones, we show locations as we talk to our friends and family and colleagues. And those aspects of communication change the linguistic output, what we produce, how we say things. If there is a way for us to complement our language with the visuals, with the semiotic resources that are available to us, that also affect the language itself, because we, the basic role of language is not to be redundant. We do not want to be redundant as we express ideas. So in this sense, it's interesting to consider semiotics as from multiple angles, from the point of view of design. And we have a wonderful article in the special issue that talks specifically about design of instructional materials that with the focus of semiotics. It is interesting to look at semiotics from the point of view of communication. How has our communication changed? The way we interact, the way we connect our location to the topic of our conversation, and how we utilize semiotic resources and visual resources in interaction. So this is also kind of a new reality of life, but this is how we use second languages as well. So in this sense, I think it's interesting to see that this dynamic, and we think we're seeing more and more of publications and studies on embodied resources, visual resources, as they play out in digital communication. And I think this special issue sort of creates this starting point to build a new orientation in the field, and a new direction in the field, where we would be considering semiotic resources as valuable and significant for language learning and for language use in digital spaces.
Very interesting. And of course, this immediately raises all sorts of questions. And I know, Liudmila, you and I spoke last year in this podcast about identity. And so my obvious next question, maybe for Lara or for either of you, is, how does all this tie into L2 identity formation? And, what can we expect there? And in particular, maybe, as there are more and more readily available tools that expand our repertoire as individuals. And I'm thinking in particular of augmented and virtual reality. I know, Lara, you've had a long-term interest in those areas, if I'm not mistaken. What are some of the kind of directions that you see emerging there?
Well, in terms of identity, images play a big role in this, and semiotics in general. When we have an image, what does this image tell us about the people, the culture, the language? I'm thinking, particularly one of the areas that I'd like to see us expand to a little bit more is linguistic landscapes, and looking at signs to help us identify and find the identity of who belongs in certain spaces. What do the signs tell us about who belongs there, who doesn't belong there, how that contributes to the culture of the community? When we walk into a space and we notice signs that are all around us, what can we learn from them? So going back to a couple of questions back and trying to link that into identities, I think that certainly the places and the spaces are something that I'd like to see us develop a little bit more in terms of the research on semiotics. Some of the studies that are in the special issue took place in the classroom or at home, but I think there's a lot of work to be done in particular communities, whether that's communities abroad or at home in very specific areas. I think that there's more to be done kind of outside the classroom and in those spaces.
Yeah, and so you mentioned the use of images and signs and what kind of the landscape mean, what it conveys, etc. But I guess what I was curious about, I don't know if either of you has any thoughts on it, is whether there's perhaps a democratizing potential for augmented and virtual reality type technologies, where perhaps learners or people in general have at least the potential for more creative, outlets to shape the landscape, question it, and maybe shape it. And, I'm thinking of just simply, using things like digital storytelling in my own classes, allowing learners who don't yet have the linguistic means to fully express their ideas. But if you encourage them and enable them, support them in using images and videos and cartoons and music, I'm just wondering if either of you has any thoughts on that potential there.
Well, there definitely a lot of potential in utilizing multimodal resources, and not only in the way where they just supplement the message, but also in the way that they create an opportunity to critically observe and analyze the message. And going back to your idea of critical dimensions, we now have been talking a lot about critical digital literacy. And in this sense, without the semiotic resources, the visual resources, it would be hard to teach students to critically analyze digital content, to see the problem or the problematicity of some of the designs, visual designs and digital designs. So in that sense, I think bringing multimodality and semiotic resources to teaching languages create new opportunities for us to teach beyond just the linguistic content, but teach students to analytical skills, critical thinking skills, uh, teach them to see inequality, teach them to see unequal division of resources, recognize those problems in our society and act upon them, and propose actions to improve more, provide more equal distribution of goods and equal distribution of languages as well, in a sense, in digital spaces. But you also mentioned, and I thought it was very interesting, you mentioned that, by adding the non-linguistic channel of communication to the classroom and to the way we teach, we also create opportunities for students who do not have enough language to communicate. We still allow them to communicate in a rich, a very personal way, and so that they can get their message across even with that minimal language that they have, by utilizing the digital technology, taking pictures, sharing locations, and discussing locations with a minimal language, but locations that are meaningful to them, and that describe them at a particular time in a particular place, and express their emotions and their way of living, and help transform and convey those messages to someone who is maybe not next door, but maybe across across the ocean. So I think this is fascinating, what is going on in terms of multimodal communication, and what potential it has for language instruction, especially for technology enhanced language instruction.
Yeah, I was
Right.
exactly asking about. Sorry, go ahead, Lara.
I just wanted to add that in addition to, working with learners who may have limited communication and using those images to bring and to allow that communication to happen a little more easily and in a different way, I think that one of the beauties of semiotics is that it also brings different tools that allow us to help learners to can bring the culture and the language to them. So if you're thinking about, for example, working with 360, media, a very simple exercise might be allowing students to experience a space in a particular culture right in the classroom. And then the power of, discussing what those images, what the signs they see, what the things they see around them, what those mean in that particular culture can also be another way of, kind of bridging the gap between the students who may not have a lot of communication skills, but also may not have the opportunities to go into other spaces and study abroad. So that's another a benefit of the semiotics.
Very interesting. Yeah, that was one of the things that really struck me in reading these contributions, was that there's so much potential application to language teaching practice as well from a lot of these studies. You've got a wide range of papers. I think there's 8, if I'm correct, eight papers included in the special issue. Will there be an introduction from you as well?
Yes, yes, we do have an introduction in the works, and it's probably in the final stages of copy edit right now, I believe. So should be
Wonderful. Yeah.
nearing the end to this.
Okay. That's well. We really looking forward to seeing it in well, not print, but you know what I mean. So what's next for both of you? Liudmila, let's start with you. What are you continuing to work in this space, and if so, what are you working on?
Absolutely. And I think there is definitely a big future for semiotics in our field. I'm currently working on an interesting project, which sort of goes back to how what you asked before. I'm working with very low beginning learners, and I ask them to communicate with learners in other countries at the same level, but using only images and visuals and video. And I'm looking at the dynamic and how the different meanings are conveyed through visuals, mix that sort of a mesh of language, visual, video, and sound, and how that communication is possible. So this is on the research side, and I'm also interested, as Lara, in expanding my work on digital mapping and interactive mapping. There is a lot of potential, given that we have Google Maps, and Google Maps literally, put us at any location in the world and allow us to experience that location almost to the point that we feel that we are in that location. We can look around, we can see the buildings, we can see the cars moving around, and that is fascinating because it's an interesting alternative to study abroad to students who are not able to travel to study abroad. But this could be a great preparation. So students can experience spaces in other countries without even leaving their own country. So in this sense, I think it's very interesting to look more closely at what we can do with digital mapping. In fact, digital mapping, as we have been working on in this area for a while, we found that it hasn't been given that needed attention in our field, and we would like to continue to work in this area to bring digital maps to the classroom for the study of culture, for the study of interaction, to allow students to share their experiences more with the other students in other parts of the world through virtual exchange. So those are great projects, many projects that can come out of the semiotic concept in core and computer-assisted language learning.
Endless source of inspiration for our listeners and readers and maybe graduate students, right? As a huge amount of work to be done, it sounds like, and very interesting work. Lara, what are you working on?
Well, Liudmila and I are exploring place-based learning a little bit more, and we're kind of working on a couple of projects. And in that respect, we're going to be doing something at Calico this summer, a workshop on place-based learning. And if time permits, we'll have learners kind of looking around the space on the campus in Minnesota, but we'll see. But that's coming up. But I'm also working on another project that involves street art. When students travel with me to Paris, we're going to be exploring a couple of areas where they have. It's kind of like being in an outdoor museum where they have murals all over the buildings and walls, and students are going to be kind of taking the slow walks to see how they understand and interpret these murals, the street art that's been commissioned and done in this area of Paris. And then they're going to work with native speakers to analyze and kind of deepen their understanding, to think more critically about what's going on with the art, what it's trying to say, especially in this particular neighborhood of Paris. I've also been working on a project for a number of years that involves the Lescant framework, where students are looking when they're noticing specific elements of culture like language or authority, and nonverbal things, and so they're documenting these things with pictures as they travel around in a specific community, and then discussing kind of the meanings behind some of the things that they see and notice with native speaker partners. So a lot of what Liudmila and I are doing parallels in many ways, which I think has lent itself well to the partnership and collaboration that we have embarked on over the past few years. We have similar interests and are passionate about some of the same things, so it's led to a really fruitful collaboration between us.
Very nice. Sounds like there's going to be another special issue at some point,
We'll see.
I hope, yeah. I'm sure after all the hard work that you've done at this point, you'll happily leave that thought behind for a little while. Right. So before we wrap up, is there anything that you would have liked me to ask you about, or that you want to say about any of the contributions to the special issue, or any final words of wisdom you want to share before we wrap up the conversation?
Well, I think we just want to encourage readers to have a look at the special issue because it's so unique and covers a wide variety of diverse perspectives, theoretical frameworks, and backgrounds, and different methodologies. And I think that, no matter what angle you're coming from, you're going to find something interesting in this special issue that kind of grabs you, and you want to think about it a little bit more and grapple with a little more. And so, that's kind of the excitement behind the special issue is, you propose a topic about semiotics, and you think you're going to get something, but you end up with a lot of different things that are just magnificent. And, these authors have worked so hard on their project. We're thankful for their contributions, and really excited for how this might travel and spread around in different parts of the world with other researchers.
And just to follow up on what Lara said, I want to reach out to our graduate students working in the field of call, because this special issue features many interesting methodologies how to approach multimodal data. It's difficult, as we know in the field, it's not easy to capture multimodal data, not to mention to analyze it in a very comprehensive way. And I think most of the articles in the special issue are research studies and could be used as model studies to pursue semiotics in dissertation research and new studies, new empirical investigations of the role of semiotics in language learning and teaching.
Yeah, that's a beautiful exhortation. And with that, I'd like to congratulate, of course, both of you, Lara and Liudmila, and also the contributors to your special issue. And let's hope that it gets all the attention that it definitely deserves. So thank you again so much for tuning in, and thank you everybody else for listening to our conversation. And we'll see you next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.